Okay, so thank you to everybody who is joining our webinar today. My name is Sasha Kalcheff-Korn, and I am Executive Director at Realm of Caring Foundation. And I am so pleased and honored to be joined today by Basil Shaaban, who is Head of Science and co-founder at the Realm of Caring vetted and supported brand Cannacea. And I am just really looking forward to this conversation that we're going to have today. I think that so many of our clients and practitioners who will be joining will really resonate with the origin story and just the wealth of knowledge that you have to share. I encourage everybody who is watching to use that Q&A box, answer or ask questions, which will be answered in the last 15 minutes of the presentation today. We'll get to those live, and whatever other questions that don't get answered, we'll either do a follow-up webinar or we'll find a way to get those answers to you. But I'm going to go ahead and land there, and I'm going to let you take it, Basil, and walk us through the cannabis history, general overview, and just thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks again for having us. It is such an honor, to be sharing what we've worked, what has come through us by, life, fate, destiny, and then also the effort and vision that the human being has. So as, a lot of our discussions, Sasha, that we've had, over the last year of collaborating in this beautiful partnership, that we like to begin with kind of a bigger overview before we zoom in. And it's always important throughout history, but especially in times like we're living now, to kind of have a reminder that this here, what we all are, is an absolute miracle of consciousness and energy and matter expressed so beautifully through life. And this harmony, this synergy that's intrinsic to life is really here to be lived by us all. So thankfully, nature is overflowing with harmonic relationships. And in this symphony of harmony, plants and fungi dance a beautiful dance. They're phenomenally resilient, adaptive, and communal beings. They are wisdom in action. And as all living beings are really meant to function once we live in balance, in equilibrium, in flow. And while physical and psycho-emotional toxicity is also natural, it's in fact intrinsic to life processes, both metabolic and psychic. Natural toxicities become disharmonious and dysfunctional when out of balance with the life-giving nourishment and detoxification processes, when out of balance with psycho-emotional nourishment and detoxification, which in time, as we know, if left unsupported, develop into a host of physical and psychological disorders, as the balance within us and the balance around us are ultimately one. Thankfully, though, nature again is overflowing with harmony and balance. And this is where the plants and fungi are truly our most powerful allies in helping upregulate our bodies and our psyches with intrinsic balance and harmony. In the physical realm, these are the beings and the substances that they create to support the inner realm and our bodies through this evolution. So for plants and fungi, they have been the food and medicine of all animals like ourselves since we animals developed on Earth. And even zooming into a very recent human history, a clear example is how over 2/3 of all new drug compounds approved by the FDA from 1980 to 2010 are actually derivatives from compounds made by plants or fungi. So from this overarching view now of a cosmic harmony graciously awaiting inside and around each of us, today we're going to dive into this very special plant, cannabis sativa, and how it can help us live with a greater balance and harmony. So with the limited time that we have together, since the psychotropic cannabinoid, delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, with its related isomer THC variants, as a powerful activator, as a potent agonist of our core CB1 and CB2 receptors, THC requires added care and special safety considerations. So today we are focusing on its sister non-psychotropic cannabidiol or CBD, which has a wider safety profile and a wider therapeutic applicability across populations.
That's fantastic. And I'm so glad that we're having this discussion. As I said, I find that many people watching will resonate and learn a lot from what you have to share. And so if this is a good time, I would love to go into the background of Cannacea's founding, the incredible health benefits that you witnessed with your own mother, and how it just grew into what it is, what Cannacea is today. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us.
Thank you. It's an honor to share what happened with us personally and inspired us to create what we're doing now and sharing here with you. So while I personally have been researching the clinical science on cannabinoid therapeutics for over 20 years, started developing oral cannabinoid formulations since around 2012 for the small community around. What happened with our mother Tagrid in 2016 changed the course of her life and ours. So having been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease and psychosis, in 2016, at age 64, she suffered a rapid spiraling into the final 2 stages of the disease's progression, which is in fact when the psychosis emerged. And this is something that many families are experiencing in today's world of increased toxicity and longer lifespans. So this is something that I think many people can relate to. And there are solutions in the power of nature, which we, due to regulatory reasons, speaking here as the head of science for Cannacea and our clinical hemp oil supplements, unfortunately, I cannot publicly speak about the many specifics of how full spectrum CBD massively improved her health, like I could do in a more private setting. So please reach out to us through Cannacea's website if you'd like to privately discuss more specifics, as we're here to assist humanity regain a natural balance in any way we can. But what I can say is that contrary to the conventional pharmaceutical interventions that we tried, that either gave no real therapeutic effects early on, or later on gave intense negative side effects, as many of you might relate. Once we first and finally tried giving her a full spectrum hemp extract, the effects on her wellness were revolutionary. It was truly an overnight miracle. And over the following months, it was clear she needed high intakes of CBD to optimize her overall wellness. In a full spectrum in particular, which we'll talk about later in our conversation. But the popular hemp CBD products on the market had too much relative THC for the psychosis she had, which psychosis can actually get triggered and amplified by THC. And the lab testing we were commissioning on those popular hemp oils were also coming back showing levels of impurities that we couldn't accept for her. So we began reaching out to licensed organic hemp farms and extraction facilities, sourcing organic hemp CBD extracts that we lab verified to superb levels of purity, blending full spectrum hemp extracts with hemp extracts having undetectable levels of THC to make her custom formulations with a higher CBD to THC ratio than normal. This is what sensitive people to THC need. We then expanded the therapeutic profile of those formulas with essential oils from hemp and other medicinal plants, also experimenting with different carrier oils for maximum absorption and longevity, until we honed in on her pristine, powerful formulations. So seeing how effective was the genuine full spectrum we had to create for her using those pure organic ingredients, knowing what a difference our special oils really made for her serious case, we knew other families and their doctors needed what had come through our family. And it was clear for us, it was an inspiration. And we decided to found Cannacea in 2017, specifically to share the fruits of our experience with all of you, and to share this act of natural grace, which so many families have experienced through cannabis therapy, and so many other families really need still to experience. So this is the kind of natural grace, as you know, Sasha, that improved the lives of Charlotte Figi and Zakai Jackson so dramatically that it inspired their courageous mothers, Paige and Heather, to create this wonderful Realm of Caring Foundation, igniting the CBD movement in the USA and then globally. So in fact, our own family benefited from important guidance that the ROC had online, resources that we needed when we were developing our mom's CBD therapy in those early difficult months in 2016. So it's very beautiful how today Cannacea is partnering the realm of caring and supporting this pivotal movement of reawakening to humanity's sacred relationship with cannabis sativa. And we are so thankful to be here together for all of you.
Yes, it's come in a beautiful full circle, and that just continues on and on. And so we are likewise so thankful for the partnership, and also just knowing that, I guess just in a sense, almost validation for the services that we're offering, and that we can actually provide help to somebody and have it launch into a specific product that's tailored for, a mother, dear mother who really needs it, just as you mentioned, as Charlotte and Zakai needed their own formulations. It's not a one size fits all approach, but we can tackle these diagnoses and different conditions, maybe, one at a time, with direct support and direct care, and a lot of care that goes into developing a product, just as you all have. And so when the title of this webinar too is maximizing the effectiveness and safety of CBD dominant phytocannabinoids. And I know that you spoke a little bit to it. You put a lot of care in the quality and the safety. So what does our community need to know about maximizing the effectiveness and safety of their journey?
Great, let's start. So the facts that we'll be sharing today are based on peer-reviewed literature that we've been researching for over 20 years. And if you're interested, Cannacea's public website and our practitioner site for health professionals are full of added scientific information with peer-reviewed references, including for the science that we'll be discussing today. So we also invite you to enjoy the Cannacea website's in-depth history section for an inspiring journey into the evolution and history of cannabis and its deep, meaningful relationship with humanity's evolution. So while many of you are aware of the endocannabinoid system, or ECS for short, while we have compiled some deep science about the ECS in the Cannacea website, in the science section that you'll find there, a quick review is in order now to ensure that we're all on the same page by touching on why is phytocannabinoid therapy so effective in the first place. So in the ECS is a core regulatory system throughout the physiology and neurology of humans and all mammals, in fact. It's a system that plays a key role in maintaining homeostasis or equilibrium within and between our many body systems. The receptors of the ECS, the major ones being known as cannabinoid receptor 1 and 2, which are shown here in this diagram, known CB1 and CB2 for short, are some of the most numerous receptors in our brains and across our bodies. For example, being found across the neurons that produce the key GABA, glutamate, dopamine, serotonin, opioid, and other major neurotransmitters essential to our healthy neurological functioning every moment. And as you can see here, it's distributed throughout our bodies, all our main organ systems. And deeper yet, the ECS itself is regulated by its own specialized set of endogenous neurotransmitters. Endogenous meaning being made inside the body, which have been called endocannabinoids. And two of the most famous of those are known as anandamide or 2-AG. They have a much more complex name, and we can leave that to people. 2-arachidinoyl glycerol is what 2-AG stands for.
Beautiful.
Yes, let's have fun with those words. But amazingly, cannabis sativa is the only significant natural source that we found for exogenous compounds that are made outside the body, in other words. They can also powerfully modulate and regulate the ECS like our endocannabinoids do. These plant compounds are known as phytocannabinoids, plant cannabinoids. It is this powerful ability of the phytocannabinoids that are uniquely made by cannabis to regulate this very important endocannabinoid system that makes cannabis such a useful therapeutic when used effectively and safely. This is what makes phytocannabinoid intake an essential supplement for optimizing regulatory and homeostatic function of our ECS, especially when the ECS itself is not running optimally, be it due to a health condition or natural aging processes. Therefore, the consumption of quality cannabis derivatives in a safe and effective manner can have a significant positive effect on human and animal health. In the future, we actually predict medicine will have identified various cannabis polypharmacy spectra that probably will get called something like a vitamin S or vitamin sativa, so to speak, that is needed for supplementing the endocannabinoids at specific times for specific health conditions or as we age. So moving now into the first part of today's discussion, peer-reviewed studies clearly indicate how the maximum effectiveness and minimum negative side effects of any plant therapy are most often harnessed through the multidimensional full spectrum of that plant's bioactive constituents, and not when just taking one or a handful of the plant's bioactive compounds in isolation. This is throughout phytochemical research, you will see this. For cannabis in particular, the most phytochemical rich part is its flower, thanks to the very high concentrations of cannabinoids there. So what we in Cannacea call a complete hemp full spectrum? While the full spectrum science on our website uncovers more details, in summary, the hemp flower biosynthesizes the following three main phytochemical classes. So let's take a look here at this gorgeous lady. First, by concentration in cannabis flower like this, very mature flower that's approaching readiness for harvest, we have the very special cannabinoids, as I mentioned, which can comprise up to 40% of the dry weight of the flower that's being achieved by some growers nowadays, depending on variety and growing methods. And this is about 5 to 10 times higher than what the wild plants would often make. So very powerful for a phytotherapeutic effect. Next in concentration are the terpenes, or the essential oil of the plant, comprising up to 4% of the cannabis dry flower weight. Finally come a wide variety of polyphenols, comprising up to 0.2% of the dry flower weight, of which the canflavin flavonoid subclass comprises the largest fraction, around a quarter of the total cannabis flower polyphenol content by mass. And this is obviously, there are also some alkaloids in there, but cannabis does not make those in particularly high concentrations. The three classes we just mentioned are the main ones that it makes in the flower. So why does this matter? It's because cannabinoid research has clearly shown how important the synergistic effects of having all these natural hemp phytonutrients working alongside the CBD intake. So for example, by 2011, De Petrocellis and colleagues showed in vitro how, compared with their isolate counterparts, so the cannabinoids on their own in isolation, full spectrum cannabinoid profiles of those cannabinoids were significantly more effective at inhibiting the enzymatic breakdown of the endocannabinoids. This reduction in the degradation and reuptake of the endocannabinoids is actually one of the major ways that CBD supports the endocannabinoid system, boosting what is now being called the endocannabinoid tone. Then by 2015, Galilei and colleagues showed in mice how, compared with CBD isolate or purified CBD on its own, full spectrum CBD required 2 to 3 times lower CBD intakes to produce equivalent anti-inflammatory and analgesic effects. Furthermore, while CBD isolate intake had a clear bell-shaped response for both anti-inflammatory and analgesic effects, this means that therapeutic effects peak at a certain intake and then drop away again as intake is further increased. Full spectrum CBD, on the other hand, in that study, did not show this ceiling, but instead displayed continuously increased therapeutic effects as the intakes were increased. This is a key part of synergy, not having just a single modality that then oversaturates the system, but having a polypharmacy coming in that allows a deeper layer of equilibrium and a continued synergistic therapeutic interaction. Now, since then, several studies with human subjects now have shown how full spectrum CBD intakes provide significantly increased therapeutic effects with significantly reduced adverse side effects compared with taking purified CBD on its own. One meta-review by Pamplona and colleagues in 2018 found that full spectrum CBD was as effective as purified CBD intakes at 75% lower intakes than that purified CBD on its own, paralleling the findings of that previous mouse study by Galilei and colleagues we just mentioned. They also found that people taking full spectrum CBD had significantly lower adverse side effects, lower by over 50% compared with the side effect rates experienced by people taking standalone purified CBD. And just last year, in 2022, Tom Coe and colleagues published how terpenes interact with cannabinoids and flavonoids to significantly enhance the regulatory functionality in breast cell growth. So our own family, even from a personal anecdotal point of view, we didn't really see a real therapeutic effect when we first tried CBD isolate with our mother, Tagrid. But when we thankfully tried that first full spectrum hemp extract with her, it had immediate wellness effects paralleling the results of these peer-reviewed studies that I just shared. So any additional processing on a plant extract tends to reduce the breadth of available phytonutrients, which is usually done as processing to concentrate a specific phytochemical subclass, like when making a broad spectrum distillate or even more intensive processing to produce a 99% purity CBD isolate, for example. So the minimal processing like we do on our certified organic full spectrum hemp extract ingredient ensures the maximum possible breadth of cannabinoids, terpenes, and polyphenol content to ensure the greatest effectiveness with minimal unwanted side effects. And we'll talk a little bit more in a moment about the subtleties of that, because even with that type of processing, if you really care about getting a genuine full spectrum, you have to do some added steps. But let's also take a sidestep and just mention something that I know we've been discussing, Sasha, ROC and us, is that there's a crucial issue today that the public and regulatory bodies need to be clear on. And we really appreciate that the ROC is active in making this awareness public. So let me reiterate, for maximum efficacy and maximum safety, hemp oils need to be allowed to have a natural full spectrum with natural low THC levels at the natural ratios to CBD. The current movement in some US states to pressure and ban federally legal hemp-derived supplements from having natural THC levels would be a major policy blunder driven by one-sided special interests. And it is too often the case that in the end, it is public health and public safety that suffers. So let us hope that wisdom prevails in the end to ensure people are receiving all the synergistic therapeutic powers that nature intends. So to show you what we mean, in fact, by a complete hemp full spectrum, having those three major phytochemical classes, let us move on and show you this range of data. So you can see on this Cannacea certificate of analysis summary report, the primary cannabinoids. So we have in Tagrid's 100, the formula that originated with our mother, we have CBD, we also have THC, and we have CBC. These are the main primary cannabinoids after the precursor CBG that is also found. There's also the secondary phytocannabinoids, CBE, cannabielsoin, CBN, cannabinol, and CBL, cannabicyclol. These are the secondary byproducts of the primary phytocannabinoids. Plus, there's cannabidivarin, CBDV, which is the varin homologue of CBD, and even, in fact, CBT, cannabicitran. You can also see here that we have reconstituted the volatile monoterpenes that are unavoidably lost during hemp processing. This is what I was referring to, that through the extraction and the decarboxylation or heat activation phase, you tend to lose or denature and damage many of those monoterpenes. So we've reincorporated this through a certified organic hemp essential oil ingredient, having a beautifully balanced profile of both the energizing and sedating terpenes to ensure maximum synergy between the cannabinoids and terpenes therapeutic effects. So myrcene here, beta-myrcene, is one of those potent sedating terpenes that is what tends to make many indica profiles sedating. But we also have terpinolene, which research has shown tends to have more of those energizing sativa-like properties. There's also the pinenes, we have the limonene, we have the linalool, the eucalyptol, and these are very powerful, ubiquitous monoterpenes found throughout plant phytochemistry and used very potently in plant therapy. Then thirdly, we also ensure that our oils contain the important synergistic polyphenols by detecting the most prevalent canflavin flavonoid subclass. Here shown canflavin A and canflavin C at concentrations approximating those found in dried cannabis flower, between 10 to 100 parts per million. And then for the most discerning customers and practitioners who are caring for sensitive patients, as a clinical level supplement, we also share the complete fatty acid profile of our products, which shows in general a very high monounsaturated fatty acid level, which is very healthy, very anti-inflammatory, and fantastic stability. And this is due to our macadamia nut oil carrier oil, which we'll discuss in a moment. And also we show the nutritional mineral profile. So this is kind of a genuine full spectrum approach to respecting the plant. So while Cannacea is dedicated to provide our customers and practitioner partners with such a complete full spectrum potency assurance, try to be sure that any full spectrum hemp oil that you wish to use out there has been lab certified, that it actually provides as much of the hemp full spectrum as nature's wisdom intends. So moving on, more sophisticated, personalized cannabinoid therapy also requires we make available a range of potencies for accurate and relevant dosing. Some users only need a few milligrams CBD per day to get the support they need, while others users or those with more serious health conditions require much higher intakes of CBD. So this is the first reason why Cannacea currently offers two CBD dominant formulas, Activated 40, which has 40 milligrams CBD in a milliliter, and Tagrid 100 with the 100 milligrams CBD in a milliliter. And while the graduated dropper allows for accurate servings with the markings, our droppers are spec'd so that Activated 40 gives 1 milligram CBD per droplet, and Tagrid 100 gives 2.5 milligrams CBD per droplet for very precise serving administration. Then there's also the important issue of THC sensitivity for users of a full spectrum product. While most users in the intakes and levels of THC in a typical full spectrum hemp oil will not really have adverse effects, for users on higher CBD intakes recommended by their physicians or users with schizophrenia or symptoms of psychosis, also that small proportion of the population with a high sensitivity to THC, varying needs and THC sensitivities must be catered for. So this is what we experienced with our own mother's care. And this is the second reason why Cannacea offers our two formulations. Activated 40 is formulated for regular use and intakes having a minimum of 25:1 CBD to THC ratio, which is typical of modern hemp, while Tagrid 100 has been specially formulated for higher intakes and provides a lower relative THC level with a 70:1 CBD to THC minimum. And that 70:1 is there to cater for those people sensitive to THC. And then finally, for maximizing the efficacy comes the important issue of how to take a CBD oil orally to maximize its absorption. So while sublingual administration is widely marketed, the oil needs to be held under the tongue for a while and have a specialized carrier to really get significant levels of absorption into the vasculature under the tongue and in the mouth before being swallowed. So while our patent pending formulations use macadamia nut oil as a carrier with its excellent transmucosal and transdermal absorption, which has made it legendary in massage oil therapy, more importantly, people need to ensure the hemp oil that gets swallowed is absorbed most effectively. So the human studies are clear. CBD oils must always be ingested with some food, or else up to over 75% of the potential for absorption can be lost in some people. It only needs to be taken with a few raisins and a few almonds, for example, any amount of macronutrient-dense foodstuff to activate the digestive enzymes and bile salts. As long as there's a decent amount of fat in that accompanying food or snack and some decent amount of protein and carbs, basically something your body will want to pull into itself. If you take a cannabinoid oil at the start of a small stack, you should get the most rapid absorption and earliest time to effect with that small food that you're taking. But taken at the end of a large meal, on the other hand, you should get the slowest absorption, latest time to effect, and usually longer lingering effects. So for maximum consistency of effect, do standardize the type and the timing of food that you do take the oil with.
These are really great points. And I just wanted to touch back on just appreciation for, first of all, touching on the advocacy piece and the state of hemp today in the United States and where we are in our fight to keep the CBD market alive and the hemp market alive for those individuals who need it most. So thank you for touching on that. And then I also just really appreciate you going through the COA. We always appreciate at Realm of Caring how in-depth your COA is and the extent to what you provide in transparency to the customer. But then just going through it, because a lot of individuals, they have questions when, how do I know to look for quality? How do I know to look for safety? And I know that's something that you all really emphasize is just like that safety piece. And so why is that important? Why do we cover those key safety considerations? What is it that we need as consumers to be paying attention to when choosing a product? And what should we be looking for?
Thank you, Sasha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's our pleasure to share the knowledge and share the best practices for people who are using hemp full spectrum now and people in the future that will need access. So zeroing in on your very relevant question, in modernity's clearly widespread imbalance of profit worship at all costs, the use of economical but highly toxic chemicals has unfortunately become commonplace all around us. So therefore, for everyone at all ages, let alone people with health conditions that demand detoxification and people who have to consume large amounts of hemp oil daily as well, the absolute purity of the hemp oil that they take is paramount. So for example, if we show you, again, diving into the science and the lab results, you can see here that this is the main reason why Cannacea has chosen to go above and beyond state testing requirements. So we screen for 467 pesticides, including glyphosate and other rarely tested weed killers. So glyphosate is the Roundup that is now, people are seeing a lot of issues from its overuse. And this is basically every pesticide regulated by the EPA for allowance into the United States. And coverage also includes over 40 solvents. Of course, we cover the state mandated heavy metals, mycotoxins, microbiology, including E. coli, salmonella, plus additionally testing for staphylococcus and pseudomonas. And in fact, we also go that step beyond and we share publicly the triple marker testing for the oil oxidation and degradation status of our supplements so that you and your doctors can be sure of the low oxidation freshness of our hemp oils after processing and bottling. And this is part of what our customers come to appreciate, like the Realm of Caring appreciates, and especially when we connect with the clinical community, with practitioners, it's this kind of potency and purity assurance that we need in the modern era in order to be giving the maximum of nature's wisdom now that we have these beautiful tools of analysis, as well as protecting people from the deleterious effects of what's being constantly pumped out there into the environment. So for the purity of the product and for your health, for people's health, as well for eliminating the toxic environmental effects of farming practices and processing methods used throughout production, it is also imperative that all ingredients in processing be as certified organic as possible. Additionally, as required in many countries' regulations for botanical medicines or pharmaceuticals, the manufacturing should really be certified to current good manufacturing practices, or CGMP. So CGMP certification ensures the highest level of safety purity, and consistency of potency for a supplement product, and has become a requirement for many leading medical institutions in the US and internationally. So while certified purity and manufacturing quality assurance is the foundation of user safety, let us now move into the final part of our discussion, which is how you and your health practitioners can ensure maximum safety when using CBD dominant hemp oils. So remember, THC dominant oils require special added safety consideration that we can perhaps discuss together in another time. But today we're focusing on full spectrum CBD oils. So as a precursor safety step, in addition to confirming no allergy to the ingredients or carrier oil used, people should confirm there's no allergy to hemp or cannabinoids. So if someone has never eaten or drank a hemp food or milk before, never ingested cannabinoids, it's always a good idea to first rub a drop or two on the inside of the wrist and ensure there is no allergic reaction after an hour or two. If that's all clear, a drop or two on the inner mucosa of the lower lip after that, without swallowing, waiting for another hour or two would be a final confirmation before proceeding. But for the general safety considerations, please do note that if you miss any of the following details, that we have on our website, also our practitioner website that is available, linked through our public website, the very specific supplement monographs that we have built for people's safety and education, that these kind of cover the exact things that we're going to be talking about today. This here is the public monograph that's available through our website. And then here is our much more in-depth clinician monograph meant specifically for practitioners that goes into deeper levels of the specifics that cover the entire range of potential intakes, whereas our public monograph is focusing on suggested use up to the typical levels for regular supplementation, which we will discuss. And also in particular, you know, we have here listed for practitioners a list of over 1,000 potential drug and supplement interactions with our hemp oils, which can be very useful. And all the references in the end are listed for that use. So if there's something here that we mentioned that you don't catch, you can always refer to our monographs, whether you're a public user or a clinician through our website. So as always, though, caveat is to begin with, as found on our labeling and is required by many states, if you have a medical condition, take medication, are pregnant, breastfeeding an infant, or you plan to be, and if you plan to give a CBD oil to a child, you must first discuss the use of CBD with your physician beforehand. If any of these apply to you and you're planning on benefiting from Cannacea's clinical hemp oils, please be sure to also point your doctor in the direction of that clinical monograph that we just showed you that's found online. So first, we need to cover special populations. If you're pregnant, breastfeeding, or planning to be, you need to be careful, since we do advise that you avoid the intake of cannabinoids until more clear research is shown. So I know this is a controversial subject, but animal studies in mammals show clear evidence that there's a dose-dependent negative effect on the implantation of the embryo, development of the fetus, and postnatal infant motor development when nursing due to the intake of cannabinoids like THC and CBD. So speak with your doctor about this if that's what you're planning or you are pregnant and nursing. And it's kind of even up to 6 weeks before the time you start nursing or plan to be pregnant, you know, the cannabinoids build up in the fatty tissues. So research has shown that, you know, giving 1 to 2 months extra gap to have those being exited out of the system would be ideal. The second special population of concern is people with moderate or severe liver disease. Since the liver converts 80% or more of the CBD that gets absorbed by the intestines into CBD's inactive metabolite, 7-carboxy-CBD, before reaching the bloodstream, if someone has moderately or severely compromised liver function, then they'll probably have significantly higher blood plasma levels of CBD than the typical user. Your doctors can use the science and metrics in our clinical monograph to zero in on the proportional reductions to compensate. Now, expanding to the general population, CBD has been established by multiple peer-reviewed clinical trials to have a very good safety profile when used responsibly as per the safety indications we're covering here. So these trials have shown that, especially if taken within the maximum suggested use levels instructed on our labeling, people usually feel the therapeutic effects without adverse side effects. However, if a physician is recommending and monitoring intakes of these full spectrum oils above our maximum suggested use, as CBD intakes increase, the major adverse effects are sedation or drowsiness and lethargy, some appetite changes, and potentially diarrhea at very high intakes. So in a full spectrum, in such case of doctor recommended monitored intakes, there's also at high levels a chance of experiencing some THC side effects, as mentioned earlier. In that case, moving towards a specialized full spectrum hemp oil having lower relative THC like Cannacea's Tagrid 100 would be recommended. And additional details on potential CBD and THC adverse effects are available to doctors in our clinician monograph. And there is one added important adverse effect caution that revolves around whether the user is taking any other drugs or supplements as well. So CBD, the other cannabinoids and their metabolites can be potent inhibitors or inducers of many of the cytochrome P450 liver enzymes and some of the UGT liver enzymes that metabolize many drugs and supplements. This can lead to significantly higher or lower levels of those other drugs and supplements in the user's blood than is intended or anticipated before they initiate CBD intake. And this is usually why users taking one or more pharmaceutical drugs or other supplements can sometimes begin experiencing increased side effects or increased pharmacological effects from those other drugs or supplements when they start taking or increasing the CBD that they're absorbing. So this is a very patient-specific case-by-case issue that requires monitoring by the doctor, and our monographs go into detail, and our drug interactions listing for doctors will also help. And for judging what are the most effective and safest intake levels of a full spectrum CBD, whether you're following our suggested use instructions or you're a health professional recommending usage to your clients, as described in both our public and our professional monographs, you should always start at a low level, usually not more than 5 to 10 milligrams CBD per intake, once or twice a day, depending on user history with CBD and the severity of their case. And you should stick with that initial level for at least a few days, but ideally a week or more, to see how that affects, since the cannabinoids are very fat soluble, like we said, and quickly build up within the fat stores found throughout our neurology and organs and bodies. Then, after that initial period, if you feel a higher effect is desired, you can add another low-level amount, like another 5 milligrams of CBD to each intake, for example, and sit with that for a few days at least, or ideally a week or more again, to give it a chance to show its longer-term effects. So just like that, slowly building up from a low level and only using the minimum amount of hemp oil necessary to achieve intended therapeutic effects. And finally, really, this is how simple and straightforward a CBD dominant full spectrum therapy can be from a safety point of view. Just to cover basic CBD pharmacokinetics, and that is how that pharmacology travels through the body to maximize effectiveness and safety when swallowed by mouth. While time and intensity of effects are strongly related to food effects covered earlier, the average time to peak plasma level and peak therapeutic effect ranges widely for people, from sometimes as low as 60 to 90 minutes up to 6 hours in other people. So these are all depending on the unique usage and personal characteristics of each person. So each user will have to discover for themselves, but usually peak effects are felt in the 90-minute to 3-hour range. And it's also helpful to note that the half-life in the bloodstream of CBD and its active preliminary metabolite, 7-hydroxy-CBD, are normally around 4 to 6 hours. And this is why many people can take CBD about 2 to 3 times a day and feel like they've been supported by its effects throughout the day and the night. So we hope this intensive dive into the core aspects of safe and effective use of CBD has been interesting, and that this information will be useful in helping you further optimize your health. We're always happy to assist users and practitioners, so please feel free to reach out to us through our online contact form if you have any further questions or need added support. Looking forward now to moving to any questions that are out there that we can be covering here. Thank you, Sasha.
Absolutely. And thank you for just helping with setting those expectations, because especially for someone who's just starting out or a practitioner who is just starting to help their patient through this process, that expectation portion can be the most difficult because it's different from a pharmaceutical. It can take time. There's titration schedules going up, going down, trying to find that sweet spot, if you will. So thank you for helping out with that conversation. It's a very important piece. And yes, we have some questions. And if there are more if individuals online, please use that Q&A box. But this first one is great because this individual is a caregiver, and they are helping the individual that they're caring for is diagnosed with dementia. And they are at a point to where they're refusing food, spitting it out. It's very hit or miss. And so they're wondering if you had a like situation with your mother, or if there's a solution to how to, get the cannabinoids in the body and start that process of trying to see if this could be a solution when you're dealing with maybe someone who's a little bit defiant along with their diagnosis.
Okay. Yeah, this is a serious situation that people can face. And this is a little bit more of a clinician-specific question, be directed towards a accredited practicing doctor. But in general, from our experience with some patients who might not just only be spitting out or refusing voluntarily, some might also be involuntarily not able to stomach, and they have certain issues with late stage disease progressions that are making it difficult for that. In general, the ideal goal is if you can find a timing, a method, a way in order also the food type itself that they can palate, that they can enjoy, something like we mentioned that has some of those fats in there to boost that absorption. You need to really be on the ground creating solutions. Usually the caregiver in the home is the primary clinician in the person's life. So you're the one who knows best what to do. So that would be targeting the food side. Now, if there's ways you can calm the environment, get some essential oil aromatherapy happening in the room in order to address some of this agitation, anxiety, and potential psychotic behavior that you might be seeing here, then that can help. If you can also then, if you need to, if you're really unable to get the cannabinoids in through ingestion, before we move into the more serious, we don't want to have to go into intubing a human being or IVing a human being. Those are clinical considerations for your health professional. But if you need to start vaporizing a CBD dominant flower inside the room with the devices that can sometimes have bags, but you remove the bag and you allow that to spread out throughout the room, cannabidiol has very powerful psychoactive properties. It's not psychotropic. There's a very powerful distinction there. It's not hallucinogenic, but it is psychoactive, very powerful for helping all kinds of psychological conditions, which for regulatory reasons, we're also not going to mention specifically, but many of those issues that you're describing there, dear practitioner that asked the question, can be calmed down by vaporizing the cannabinoids. So if they are not willing to inhale a vaporizer of hopefully organic, high quality CBD flower, then really just putting it in the room and having everyone enjoy it as the calming effects, that might be a solution. So I hope that addresses some of these approaches, and then hopefully also your clinical professional can also assist.
Yes, thank you. And they say thank you as well. And so another individual was asking about the lab testing. And so the COAs that you have go into very great detail. I know for Realm of Caring, we use for our third-party testing SC labs out here in Colorado. Can you share or recommend labs who can do this more in-depth testing?
Very interesting. So we have, developing from what we had with our mother in 2016, 2017, all the way through the last 7 years, we've kind of experienced and researched and experimented with various laboratories in the United States. Obviously, all are ISO IEC 17025 accredited. And we have found that, while there are naturally going to be differences between each lab's protocol and their standardization, and therefore you do get variances between labs, sometimes over 10, 15% between labs. But the idea is to find a specific laboratory that is giving you consistent results from test to test, especially when you're doing like stability testing, like a serious manufacturer does, to understand how the product is over time. So there are various ISO accredited labs doing cannabis specific work. And those can be found online, and look for that ISO IEC 17025 accreditation always for that higher assurance of consistency of results. But there are also some very, very experienced general broader food safety laboratories in the United States that are doing all kinds of broader efficacy and testing. And these are the ones that, once they have incorporated a high quality cannabinoid testing protocols, they can also be very, very useful. So we found some laboratories like this that have become core partners in our batch testing and stability testing. So by all means, the person who asked the question, if you go see the COAs that we have publicly listed on our website, you will find there, I showed you guys the summary report, but after that comes over 30 pages of COAs from what we consider to be some of the top laboratories in the United States. And those in there should hopefully guide you towards some of these, based on the lab results that you're seeing, what they're doing and the breadth, you'll be able to see which laboratory to connect with. I hope that helps.
Yes, and that's the detail that you just go into with delivering this product is just amazing. There's no sparing of attention to detail, which segues into this follow-up question, who you might have mentioned, because it started in 2017, but how long did it take for you to come to the final formula and say this is the one that's helping? How many months, years, days of R&D did you all go through?
So obviously we're always evolving, we're always researching and developing. So the formula in this batch is evolved from what we obviously made for mom. And once we reached what you're asking about, it's been evolved since then. And we also have some future subtle tweaks to kind of perhaps potentiate the synergistic effects that we're researching and developing. But really, from that first evening, I think it was August 30th of 2016, when we saw that, what we're calling that beautiful miracle by the grace of nature with our mother. And it took another 4 to 5 months of finding all of these different, as we said, the organic suppliers, the farms, the essential oils. And really, I mean, once we added that phytoterpene level with the cannabinoids, the efficacy felt like it doubled. And this is part of the reason why we've gone on to research everything we've done to see that the science actually backs this. And so with then finding the special macadamia carrier oil for really rapid, effective absorption. And by the time we reached spring of 2017, we kind of had seen, the beautiful wave of all this phytochemical polypharmacy doing all the power and therapeutic effect. So it was really about a 4 to 5 month period. And just to add a little extra note to help people is that when you get into also adding, like we mentioned, for that patient who's not keeping food in, when you start looking at lavender essential oil for elderly people's agitation, anxiety, or pain, when you look at chamomile for anxiety, you look at the pinene from pine oil or black pepper for this graceful calming. There's so many layers of phytotherapeutic love in nature that people need to also tap into. And we did this with our mother. There's a side essential oil therapy that that we help her with. Also, many of the traditional wisdom traditions in medicine, we're talking Ayurveda, we're talking traditional Chinese medicine. These are the ground, the root of our knowledge of medicinal therapies. They've spent millennia researching and testing on themselves, sages out in the jungle trying these things. So there's a tremendous amount of wisdom out there. And we also incorporated medicinal mushrooms, people who have dementia, lion's mane, and some of these other very supportive brain function mushrooms can be very helpful. And Ayurveda in particular has an amla fruit-based concoction called Shaaban prash, which is, you smell it and the color and the smell is just so full of life. So these are all things that helped our mother. And really, we invite people to access as much as possible of the cornucopia of plant medicine that is available to human beings throughout time.
I'm sensing a follow-up webinar where we title it The Cornucopia of Plant Medicine and have you join us again and talk more about this because it's so fascinating. I know I could listen all day to just that insight and, thinking about, how we could further benefit our daily health and our everyday. And just to go off that, and I know we're short on time, but I did want to get to this one question because it speaks directly to your formulas with the macadamia nut oil. And so this individual is just curious to know about the other benefits. And I know that you talked about absorption. And another great question just came in. So we'll get to this other one too. But so the macadamia nut oil is you talked about in the skin and for massage therapists. So what are some other great benefits that could come from the macadamia nut oil, or is it just benefiting the absorption process?
Okay, thank you. So while the absorption we've talked about, and it's both a very powerful transdermal and transmucosal delivery vehicle. So it transmucosal meaning inside the mouth and the esophagus, even the intestinal mucosa all the way through. So it's great for that, and that's one of the reasons we use it. But it is also one of the highest oils in nature in oleic acid. That's a monounsaturated fatty acid that is the primary fatty acid in olive oil, and what really gives olive oil all of those health benefits that most people know about. So it's got a very high level of oleic acid, very healthy, and it's got very low levels of polyunsaturated fatty acids, which tend to be the ones that are more pro-inflammatory. So macadamia nut oil is one of the lowest oils in nature in polyunsaturates. And it also has lower levels of saturated fatty acids. So overall, it is 75, 80+% monounsaturated fatty acids, and a lot of cardiovascular research will show how important that is as well for the cardiovascular system's health and also for neurological health. And in particular, macadamia oil is one of the only plant oils on earth that has high levels of palmate oleic acid. This is an omega-7 monounsaturated. And it is together, the fatty acid profile of macadamia nut oil is the closest in nature to the fatty acid profile found in human adipose fatty tissue. And this is perhaps, we're theorizing, more research to be done, why macadamia nut oil is so potently absorbed into the system, because it's almost like the body might think, oh, why are my fats outside here in my mouth? I need them in, and it carries the things in. So from a nutritional standpoint, from an absorption standpoint, but obviously for users and for manufacturers like us, the stability of it over time, like most saturate dominant or monounsaturated dominant oils, you're going to get that 2 to 3 year shelf life that you can't achieve with polyunsaturated rich oils. So nutrition, absorption, stability, when you got these three things happening, you kind of know that you're on a super carrier oil.
Yeah. And I also really like how you talked about even earlier too, when you're considering that that fatty snack or protein that you're going to have, a nutrient dense food that you're going to have with your CBD doses, to just be very conscious about what it is that you're putting in your body, and that it is something that your body will take in. And I like how you word that, because it's it makes sense, right? You want something that's nutrient dense. You don't want to just have, I mean, chocolate has its benefits, but being conscious about that. So I'm going to get to one more question, if you don't mind, and then we'll close up, because I do have some individuals asking if I recorded, and yes, I did. And this will be uploaded to the patient portal and the client portal later this evening for you. So this one individual asked, because I think it's a great piece of information to take with them. They're wondering how you foresee the potential of CBD being used in a nursing home community, considering the medical sensitivities. There might maybe compromised liver and kidney functionality, to which I know at Realm of Caring, we're always, advising for liver function tests and blood serum draws for medication levels. But knowing that people could benefit from their use, how do you foresee this CBD getting into nursing homes and potentially providing a lot of help to these medically fragile individuals?
Absolutely. That's a great question, and a visionary question for the future of healthcare, that certainly nursing homes. So while the endocannabinoid system is so foundational to the way so many of our body systems work, in general, it's shown by taking samples of the cerebrospinal fluid or doing metabolomic sampling by cheek swab and saliva, that with various disease conditions, and the clinical research is starting to come out on this, some of these main clinical conditions that cannabinoid therapy addresses, as well as with age, the body's endocannabinoid tone starts to drop, i.e. the levels of endocannabinoids that our system is producing start to go down in concentration. And this is why a lot of these disease processes that are treated by phytocannabinoid therapy tend to start to creep up with age. They're geriatric conditions. It seems like there's a powerful connection there with endocannabinoid tone dropping with age. So the nursing home population is a very particular group, the geriatric, and potentially have other disease conditions that are occurring, that a phytocannabinoid therapy profile can really assist many of these people. So this CBD dominant being a wider safety profile, and tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, is a very, very important sacred phytocompound made by nature that has very particular uses that are important for our health and also for psychospiritual development. But CBD being something that can really be across populations, because some people have that THC sensitivity, and especially at older age, that the nursing home category can really benefit from having a high quality, vetted, really broad synergistic profile of a CBD intake. So with time, as we mentioned, that there's going to be a vitamin sativa coming into the human mainstream consciousness. I think the nursing homes stand to really benefit from this, and whether it's done through inhalation or it's done by topical application on certain areas that need endocannabinoid support, or taken internally for a systemic approach, certainly the older community stands to benefit greatly from this. And we hope that this continues to expand with the beautiful work that different organizations are doing, like the Realm of Caring, to spread the awareness of all the benefits awaiting in nature.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that beautiful answer. I think we have to leave it there because, as you said, it's a look into the future, and that's what we're looking towards in this industry, and as we help people move forward. So thank you, Basil, so much for joining, sharing your knowledge, sharing the background origin of Cannacea. And to everybody watching, thank you for tuning in. And this will be recorded, and we will also be sharing it throughout our newsletters and our socials in case you missed any of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Such an honor.